Today, I want to share with you the idea that God or the divine is not difficult to find, but impossible to avoid. And this hinges on the fact that God or the divine is not an object of experience, but the consciousness underlying all experience. So, to approach this topic, it is essential to distinguish between God as an object external to human perception and God as the ultimate subject or ground of all being and experience and awareness. When we consider God as an object of experience, we are placing the divine within the realm of phenomena, things that can be perceived, analyzed, and conceptualized. This perspective aligns with religious traditions that emphasize encountering God through sacred texts, rituals, or visions. Right now in India, the Kumbh Mela is actually the ultimate expression of this. So, in these religions, Eastern and Western, in many religious practices, people seek sacred texts, rituals, or visions. They seek tangible signs of God's presence in miracles, sacred places, personal revelations, help from a guru, etc., etc. However, this approach inherently limits the divine by confining it to human categories of understanding. To make God an object is to render the infinite finite, reducing the ineffable to something graspable by human senses or intellect. So, in contrast to this, many philosophical and mystical traditions argue, and these are both East and West, that God or the divine is not an object among other objects, but rather the ultimate subject, the consciousness that makes all experience possible. And this view resonates with non-dualistic philosophies such as Advaita Vedanta and certain strands of Christian mysticism. According to this perspective, God is not something we perceive. Instead, God is the very ground of perception itself. The divine is not out there to be encountered, but in here as the essence of awareness and the essence of our awareness as well. This understanding, of course, challenges conventional notions of subject-object duality. If God is the consciousness underlying all experience, then any attempt to find God as a separate entity is misguided. Instead, realizing the divine involves a shift in awareness, recognizing that the seeker and the sought are one. And in this sense, God is not an external being, but the immanent reality within which all beings exist. Philosophers like Immanuel Kant have also contributed to this discussion by emphasizing the limits of human cognition. Kant argued that our knowledge is confined to phenomena, the things we can experience through our senses and mental faculties. The noumenon, or ultimate reality, lies beyond these limits. If God is understood as the ultimate reality, then by definition, God can not be an object of experience because God's nature transcends human categories of thought. Mystics across cultures have echoed this idea through their descriptions of union with the divine. Rather than perceiving God as an external reality, mystics often describe losing their sense of individual selfhood and merging into a greater consciousness. And this suggests that experiencing God involves transcending ordinary modes of perception and entering a state where subject and object distinctions dissolve. So, if God is the subject of all experience, then God is not difficult to find. God is impossible to avoid. And this leads to a profound transformative insight. It shifts the focus of spiritual inquiry from seeking an external, distant deity to recognizing the divine as the very essence of our existence and awareness. And this perspective invites us to reconsider the nature of God, the act of searching, and the relationship between the seeker and the sought. If God is understood as the ultimate subject, the consciousness or awareness that underlies all experience, then God is not something out there to be sought. Instead, God is the ever-present reality within which all experiences arise. And in this view, every moment, every thought, every sensation, every perception is already suffused with the divine because it unfolds within the field of consciousness. That is God. This idea resonates, of course, as I've said, with Advaita Vedanta and also with mystical teachings in Christianity, Sufism, and Buddhism. For example, in Advaita Brahman, the ultimate reality, as is described as not this, neti, neti, indicating that it cannot be grasped as an object, but is instead the substratum of all existence and awareness. Similarly, Christian mystics like Meister Eckhart have spoken of God as closer to us than we are to ourselves, a reality so intimate that we often overlook it. If God is this ever-present consciousness, then finding God does not require effort or searching in a conventional sense. Instead, it requires a shift in perspective, a recognition that what we are seeking has never been absent. To borrow a metaphor from Rumi, you wander from room to room, hunting for the diamond necklace that is already around your neck. The difficulty, so-called, in finding God arises not because God is absent, but because we are mistakenly perceive ourselves as separate from the divine. This illusion of separation stems from identifying with the ego, a limited sense of self that sees itself as distinct from others and from the world. When we operate from this fragmented perspective, we conceive of God as an object outside ourselves and embark on a search to bridge the perceptual or perceived gap. However, if God is the subject of all experience, the seeker and the sought are already one. The act of searching for God becomes paradoxical because it presupposes a distance that does not actually exist. As St. Augustine famously wrote, "You were within me, but I was outside myself, and it was there that I sought you." So if God is the consciousness in which all experiences arise, then once again, every moment, whether mundane or extraordinary, is an encounter with the divine. Even when we feel distant from God or unaware of God's presence, our very capacity to feel or think or imagine, all of that arises within the divine consciousness. So in this sense, it is not possible to avoid God because there's no outside of God's presence. This understanding has profound implications of how we live our lives. It suggests that every aspect of existence, joy and sorrow, success and failure, clarity and confusion, is an expression or manifestation of the divine. There is no need to wait for special moments or extraordinary experiences to encounter God. Every moment is already sacred. So, mystics often describe this realization as a kind of awakening or homecoming. Rumi, once again, the great 13th century Sufi mystic, captures this beautifully when he writes, I searched for God and found only myself. I searched for myself and found only God. Recognizing that God is impossible to avoid does not mean that this truth is always apparent to us, of course. While God's presence may be constant, our awareness can be clouded by distractions, attachments, and identifications with transient aspects of life. Therefore, spiritual practices like meditation, prayer, mindfulness, and self inquiry are very valuable, not because they bring us closer to a distant God, but because they help us remove the veils obscuring what has always been present. When we live with the awareness that every moment arises within divine consciousness, our relationship with life itself transforms. We begin to see beauty and meaning in even the smallest details. Challenges become opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to overcome. Relationships take on a deeper significance as we recognize others as expressions of the same divine essence. So, friends, do you agree that God is not difficult to find? God is impossible to avoid. This is my latest book, Digital Dharma, How AI Can Elevate Spiritual Intelligence and Personal Well-Being. And if you wish to continue with this or other conversations and connect with my digital twin, deepakchopra.ai. In the meanwhile, focus on God's presence within you. God is the presence within you that makes all experience possible.